So good morning, everyone. We hope you're all keeping safe and warm. We are very delighted to be gathered today for our very first mental health virtual info session. My name is Nomfundo Mwelase, a representative from AFHCO, Africa Housing Company, and I will try my best to keep everything together. Could you kindly all turn off your videos and mute your speakers, please? I'll just give you a moment to do that. Thank you. If you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to send them on the chat, and I will have an opportunity after the speaker is done to ask those questions, and we can continue to have that interaction. I'll also try my best to get through all the questions with the limited time that we have. But again, welcome to everyone. We're very happy today to be together and to be talking about mental health. So as a reminder, you can share the meeting link with your friends and family. There's no limit to this. Let's get as many people as we can to join today, because I really believe that is going to be a very important session for everyone that we can all learn from. So let's not leave everyone in the dark. Please do share the love and the link. I'll ask one of my colleagues to just drop the link on our chat so that you can see it as well. Just as a reminder, please, could everyone please kindly turn off all your videos and mute your speakers? We'll just have the presenters and myself with our videos and speakers on when necessary. Also, one of my colleagues will share the meeting link so that you're able to share it with your friends and family, so that they cannot be left in the dark, and we can all share in the love and obviously in the goodness that we will be enjoying today in our mental health virtual info session. So we are very happy today to be joined by Candice from ICAST Independent Counseling and Advisory Service, and Maren Sher, author and affiliate of SADC, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Thank you, ladies, for taking the time to equip us with knowledge on mental health, and on this cold day to be bracing us with your virtual presence. Thank you so much. We have seen an increase of mental health awareness in the past year, which is great, especially with the surge of COVID-19. We've seen the likes of Miss South Africa taking on the baton as well. We've seen very influential people speaking out, speaking up also about their own personal experiences about mental illness. And I think it's a great phenomenon that we have arrived at this point here, that we are having also organizations that are driving this conversation for us as employees and tenants, and just people in general, because it's very important that we continue to speak up about mental health in our society. I think I speak for many when I say that we have experienced mental illness in many ways, even at times not aware that we are. So this is very much about how we can ensure that we maintain the highest level possible of mental health in our everyday lives.
Oh, okay.
Could I please ask that when you are with us, can you please have your videos off and please mute your speakers? Colleagues, please help me mute participants that aren't muted, except for our speakers and myself.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder to everyone, can you please have your videos off and please ensure that your speakers are also off. So I'll just start all over with the introduction as more and more people are joining. Just as a reminder, please do have your cameras off and your speakers off. So that we can get right into it without wasting too much time. So we've seen an increase of mental health awareness in the past year, especially with the surge of COVID-19 and how that has affected us so much. And I think that I speak for many people when I say that we have experienced a lot of mental illness in many ways, even at times not aware that we are. So this is very much about how we can ensure that we maintain the highest level possible of mental health in our everyday lives, and how we can also help each other through our mental health journeys. And most importantly, to break the stigma of mental illness. Without wasting too much time, please everyone help me welcome Candice Selzinger. Candice has been working in the employee wellness space for 8 years. She has a background in psychology and coaching being her passion. Candice is the account manager for the AFHCO Employee Wellness Program, which we launched this year. Candice will be
Hi, Nomfundo, you are on mute.
Hi, everyone. Can we please ensure that we have our cameras off and our speakers off, please? Except for the speakers and myself. I'll give you just a moment to do that. Can you please switch off all your cameras and have your speakers off, please? Without wasting too much time, please, everyone, help me welcome Candice Selzinger. Candice has been working in the employee wellness space for 8 years. She has a background in psychology and coaching being her passion. Candice is the account manager for the AFHCO Employee Wellness Program, which we launched this year. Candice will be taking us through the importance of mental health in the workplace being where we spend most of our lives, fending for our families and driving our own passions. So Candice, as I hand over to you and give you time to share your screen as well for the presentation, could I please again just ask that we have our cameras off and all our speakers off, except for right now it would be Candice only. Thank you, Candice. Over to you.
You're welcome, Nomfundo. Thank you so much for that introduction. And just to leverage off what Nomfundo said, firstly, just to introduce myself again, my name is Candice. I'm the account manager for AFHCO. ICAST has been working with AFHCO for a number of months in the employee wellness space. So I'm happy to take you through some work-life and work-life balance and work-life integration slides this morning. And to leverage off, and the most important thing that I'd like to drive this morning is I'm going to talk to what Nomfundo spoke about, and that is mental health and mental illness, emotional stability. Just to start off with some interesting and rather scary stats. And I know with the recent developments in what we're all going through, this just adds to what's on our plate at the moment. So since lockdown started in 2020 of March, ICAST has been taking about 9.2 suicide ideation calls every single day. So we look after about 780 corporate clients in this country. We take care of about 1 million employee lives. And out of that client base, every single day, we're taking 9.2 suicide ideation calls. That's the conservative number. In December of 2020, we were taking about 17 of those calls every day, just because of the nature of the season. Research also shows that for every attempt that is followed through, there's about 200 attempts, or every ideation that's followed through, there's 200 suicide attempts. So that's the grim picture, guys. I'm happy to say that on the flip side and the positive side, when employees in our client base that we service come through to ICAST or other institutions like SADC, there's a very high rate of success in terms of helping those employees and their families to feel a little bit better. So what I'm going to do this morning is just take you through some slides in terms of work-life balance. We're going to look at what work-life balance is. It's not novel information that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm sure that you've heard this information before, but I find that sometimes we just need to hear it again. And what's important is to start implementing. So putting the words or the knowledge or the training into action. So my objective here is, if you can take one or two things that you are willing to implement in your daily lives, take it away from this presentation. I've got about 20 minutes to impart that knowledge or skills with you, and I'm going to definitely do my best in trying to meet that objective. So just one or two things, then my objective will be met. But without further ado, let me start and get cracking with the presentation. If there's any questions, as Nomfundo said, please pop it into the chat box. Any technical issues with the presentation, please feel free to stop me. I'm going to move into the first slide, and we're going to look at the spheres of human activity. Again, this is not novel information. We know that as human beings, we operate in various spheres, and to be successful as holistic human beings and functioning holistically within society, we need to pay attention to all of those spheres. There's the self, community, family, and then work. And what we're finding with the troubled times we are living through, and for various reasons, one reason being that there's just more to do with less people at the moment. Work is where we are focusing most of our time and energy. And the ripple effect of that is that the self, community, and family, the other spheres of human activity, there's going to be a shortfall. If you've got 100% to give and there's 25% to give in all of these spheres, if you're going to input 75% into work, guess what? You have 25% to give in all the other spheres. So this is why it's increasingly important to look at mental health, but within a work context. And remember, all of these spheres are equally important. So let's look at work-life balance. Where do we go wrong? And I know that having this conversation in terms of the systematic trauma that we've been living through for more than a year, as well as the recent events, it seems counterintuitive to be looking at work-life balance when we are operating in crisis mode. I understand that. But nonetheless, if we can just take a step back, and as I said, look at one or two things in terms of balancing our lives out, we're going to see less of a ripple effect of the traumatic events or effects of everything we've been experiencing as a community, as a society, as a country. Going forward, it's going to help us. So please bear with me while I share this information with you. So where do we go wrong as human beings, as employees? We put work demands first. There's a lack of assertiveness, so we don't know how to say no. Our own priorities, and often our family or the self, comes last. We have poor time management. There's a lack of discipline and poor boundaries, especially with working from home. So with this new way of working, we don't have a frame of reference as to how to manage working from home. So there's extra on our plate, or extra issues or boundary violations that we need to navigate and learn through. The fear of punishment at work. A very important one, greed, more money, pride, more status. Some of us escape from home life through work. And there's self-destructiveness, so an excessive drinking or socializing, especially during this time where people are increasingly and turning to their coping mechanisms. Sometimes that is drinking and socializing. So that also pulls away from your work-life balance, and that tips in the favor of life and not work, where the others are more, it pertains more to over investing in work. Let's just look at the price of not having work-life balance. So it's all good and well that we're so driven to putting a lot more into work than we should. But there's a negative consequence, and it's often seen months or years later. So what is this price? So there's increased stress. I just want to harp on the first one. So let's delve a little bit. Hi, sorry.
Sorry, Candice, sorry. We're still on slide 1.
Right. Do you mind if I take it out of presentation mode? There seems to be a problem with MS Teams. Can I do that?
No problem.
All right. I hope that you can see the slide on the screen now.
Yes, we can see the slide on the screen. The title is The Price of Having No Work-Life Balance. And can I just also still take this opportunity to just ask that we obviously all have our screens off and our cameras off, please. Thank you. Over to you, Candice.
Thank you, Lucinda. No problem. So just looking at increased stress, guys, research shows, let's look at the ripple effect of stress. So everyone, it's the new, I'm so stressed, the new buzzword, I'm so stressed, we're so stressed. But if we look at stress in terms of what it does in our bodies, so let's just look at stress hormones, cortisol, your adrenaline. What does that do to your heart? What does that do to your immune system? 80%, and research backed up by research, 80% of all physical illnesses has a stress root. So what is the price that we're really paying for being out of balance and allowing stress to wreak havoc on our immune systems? Can we afford to be walking around with lowered immune systems? Not at all. Is there enough stress going on around us, that we don't need to add additional stress? And we have some control over that. Yes, there's enough stress going on around us. And when do these physical illnesses or ailments show up? It does show up later in life. So we might not see the effects immediately. You might feel your heart pounding, you might be sleeping less now, but you don't know what it's doing in your heart and in your body. So please remember, increased stress, it's not a good payoff or price to pay for having no balance. There's going to be an eventual decline in work performance. So the very thing that we're trying to protect or increase, and that's usually with perfectionists, we want the highest quality of work and work outputs and performance. And I've seen it in the work that we do. And this one also comes in at the back end. It comes in months later where your work performance actually starts decreasing and declining, yet you're putting in just as much or more time than you have before. And why does that happen? Because the balance, it's tipped to the one side and you're not performing in other areas. Your body is stressed out. You can't think clearly. There's an influx of stress hormones going through or pumping through your system. And how are you expected to perform adequately or even at an increased level? It's definitely going to stress and strain your relationships, especially at home, but also at work. We spoke about a deterioration in physical and emotional functioning, and I'd just like to share some stats with you on that. We're not even out of this pandemic as yet, but the UK has done some preliminary research, and their stress factor within the workplace has already risen by 4%. It was sitting at 51% pre-COVID, it's sitting at 55% now. I can't imagine what it's going to look like in the next 3 years if we're out of the full or the pandemic, the lockdown, the isolation. And also an unbalanced life yields little satisfaction. So this is where I'd like you just to sit back and think for a minute. The input into not having balance, and we don't want to vilify work. There's nothing wrong with wanting to excel at work and going the extra mile. But let's look at what we input into being unbalanced. Does it feel good? And if it doesn't feel good, why do we do it? At the end of the day, we're human beings. We're here to have a joyful and good experience for most of our life. And if something doesn't feel good, it's time that we look at perhaps withdrawing the input and our attention from that thing. So just something to think about. And then burnout, guys. ICAST is experiencing an influx of employees coming through with burnout. So if you are in that position, you're not alone. We've been going through a lot, even pre-COVID. We live in a society where we are systematically traumatized, the violence, the crime, not being stable in the economy. So please note, you're not alone, and remember, ICAST is here to support you through that. Let's look at the upside. What are some strategies or some positive things you can do to achieve work-life balance? And these, again, it's not novel or new information, but please take away one or two from this list. So make a list of essential activities. So things you want to do. Things you want to do as a family. And guys, please set some boundaries around these and make these boundaries visible. These are essentially things that you love doing, that your family loves doing. It's very, very important to fill our lives with the things that we like and love doing. That is going to increase your happiness or satisfaction level, and that in turn has ripple effects on physical and mental health. Also list your don't want to do activities, so time wasting activities. And I always say in this point to please include people in that. If there's people that is zapping your energy and people that you don't feel good being around, they need to be on this list. It's very important that we choose the people that we spend the most time with. We choose it very, very well, choose them very, very wisely. Also organize a division of labor, especially work at home moms or moms that are hybrid working, families where there's kids. Organize a division of labor. As females, sometimes we want to carry all the loads on our shoulders. Remember, you can ask for help. Have a discussion with your kids, with your partner, or whoever's living in your home, and it's okay to ask for help. Remember to involve the children. Let's look at some more strategies. Important, schedule time for regular recreation or leisure time. This one is very, very important. When we are traumatized and living in a state of shock, this one is usually the last one that we look at. I'm going to ask you to force yourself to make time for the things that bring you peace and leisure. It doesn't matter what those are. It could be movie night, it could be meditation, exercise, a walk in the park if that's allowed and safe. Create time for fun and intimacy. Keep weekends as work-free as far as possible, and seize quality time with the family. So without laptops and the phones, just some natural time to interact. We're moving further and further away from learning to from interacting naturally with the people that are around us. Lots of social media and stuff going on Facebook, Instagram. I think we need to return back to just focusing on the people that's in our space when they are in our space. Guys, how can ICAST assist you? So I know that most of you attended the ICAST launch program. Just a reminder of our services. We offer telephonic as well as face-to-face, well, it's virtual now, counseling. We offer trauma counseling and trauma debriefing as well. Our services is free. AFHCO pays us every single month for you to get these services for free. These services are extended to your loved ones. So anyone living with you and anyone financially dependent on you gets the services for free. It's available in all 11 official South African languages. We're there to offer coaching as well. So you don't need to be in crisis to reach out to ICAST. We'd prefer that you reach out sooner rather than later. If you're feeling overwhelmed at the moment, and I'm sure many of us are, you're in good company, and remember, ICAST is here to assist, so please reach out if you're feeling overwhelmed. We don't only offer counseling and therapy options, we offer life management services. Covered under this is the legal, financial, and family care, as well as a COVID helpline. So any COVID-related questions, queries, guidance on medications, on symptoms, we're there to assist. The legal, financial, and family care benefits will take some pressure off you, some stress off you, help you balance your life in terms of those issues. You don't need to deal or go those issues alone. Any legal questions, you want to know something about taxes, because tax season opened up. We've got specialists to assist. And don't forget eCare, which is the online electronic care portal that you all have access to. On there, there's a doctor, a dietitian, a nutritionist, and a personal trainer. So we're looking after your physical health as well. We're trying to minimize stress as your wellness partner. And don't forget to download the ICAST On The Go app. Many of you already have it. There's a wonderful chat function on the ICAST app where you can chat to a psychologist anytime, day or night. Just a reminder on how you access the ICAST core benefits. Just the toll-free number, if you don't already have it, it's 0800 214 773. It's toll-free from a cell phone. There's a USSD callback function, which is *134 *905#. I mentioned the ICAST On The Go app already. Guys, very important, before I end my session this morning, just a reminder on our confidentiality stance. So our professionals are all registered with the relevant boards. So the Health Professions Council of South Africa, and we're governed by the legalities and the ethical considerations. We can't share your information with anyone, not within AFHCO, not outside. We will lose our license if we do so. We take it 2 steps further. We don't record our calls, and you're welcome to remain anonymous when you come through to ICAST. So you don't need to tell us your name, but tell us where you're calling from. There's a few instances legally where we need to break the rule of confidentiality, where you are a risk to yourself and we cannot contain you through therapy and counseling, where you are a risk to other people, where you pose a risk to the organization in any way, where you tell us you're going to damage property or commit a crime, and where we pick up a risk to children, the elderly, or vulnerable adults. Other than that, this program is confidential, even though we operate in the employment or the workspace. Guys, and that's all from me this morning. I hope that this presentation was insightful. Remember the objective being to take away 1 or 2 things that you're going to implement and actually practice within your daily life. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to unshare my presentation, and I don't know if there are any questions, but I'll be happy to answer, and all of them.
Thank you so much, Candice. I think just a little bit of a round of applause to you there, and heartfelt thank you. Thank you so much. I'm seeing chats coming through. People are thanking you as well for that. Just as a reminder, if you've got any questions during our sessions, you can just pop them into the chat and we will ask them. And another reminder, please ensure that you've got your cameras off and your speakers off as well, except for the presentations. So I do have a few questions. Couldn't let you go without asking a few questions. You mentioned stress, and I think it's something that we go around saying a lot. I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. And what exactly? And I know you did go through it extensively, but we use the word so much so that we don't actually know when is the time that I should say, you know what, this is when I need the help. I mean, currently now in the country, we can see how stressful it can be. Just for anyone, I was speaking to a couple of people that were saying that I've just got so much anxiety with what's happening in the country, and it's stressing me out. Am I going to be able to perform well at work, within my workspace, and so forth? So when is a time where I really need to, is it at the time where I say, you know what, I'm actually stressed that I need to then contact someone who can be able to assist me?
All right. So you actually want to know, when do you need to reach out when you are stressed? Exactly then, when you're expressing your stress either to yourself or to someone else. And how do we know the difference? So some stress and anxiety is good. Like, for example, if I'm standing in the middle of the road and a truck is coming, and that fight or flight response kicks in, that's good because it gets me out of danger. But to answer your question, the brain doesn't know the difference between when it's actual physical danger or when it's something else like in the workplace or stress regarding work. And we should not be experiencing that stress. We should be experiencing stress when we are in physical danger or extreme psychological danger. And I know that it does sound counterintuitive because we've all lived through different stresses for quite a long time, that it's become normal that we are stressed. And that's why we use those words. I'm chronically stressed. I'm stressed. So we are a chronically stressed society. I know it's not normal, but it has become normal. So when do you reach out? As soon as possible, when you feel that you are unable to or you don't have the necessary capacity to deal with what's on your plate. And for everyone, that is a different point. I can maybe deal with a little less than you can, Mfundo, but I will know. That's why self-awareness is also very important, guys. You need to know. You need to know. It's like having a broken arm. Sometimes shock kicks in and you can run, or a broken leg, you can run a short distance without feeling the pain, but you're actually damaging your leg. So you need to be self-aware. Know yourself, know your limits, know your boundaries. As Blake said, boundaries very important. Know your boundaries, know who you are. And you'll know when you need to reach out, but please don't leave it for too long.
I think you touched on a very good point there when you spoke about when you mentioned rather self-awareness, and it's the most important thing when it comes to mental health, because you then have that time to actually understand yourself. And you can see, when do I actually now need to create these boundaries? When do I actually now need to reach out for the extra help that I need? That the kids are just driving me crazy at the moment and I just need some time, you know? So how do we actually get to that point of being self-aware?
So one way of doing that is by being present. So being present in the moment and feeling into yourself. What I do as a practice, I just take a deep breath, because things can get so crazy. We hardly breathe. Our breathing is so shallow. We're going from one task to the next. Just slow down, be present in the moment, and do that often. And ask yourself, what am I feeling? That is going to build your self-awareness. I hope that helps. That's one practice, but that's a whole different seminar on its own in terms of awareness. But that's one good one that works well. It's just being present and understanding, what are you feeling in the moment.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask the last three questions before we go on to our next speaker. So we've got a question from Pilisiwe, who says, kindly explain the difference between stress and pressure.
Right. I think pressure is usually used in the physical sense, but we use it interchangeably in the workplace. So stress and pressure, from my perspective, is exactly the same thing. If you're under stress, if you look at an elastic band, if I pull it, I'm not necessarily applying force as pressure, but there is pressure on the elastic band. Same with your emotions, and exactly the same thing with stress. So I use it interchangeably. Stress, pressure, yeah, same thing in the workplace.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll reserve my my last question for after we done with our next speaker. But we've got a request here from Portia's. Can you please just share the number again that we can use to call and contact ICAST?
Sure, I'm going to pop it into the chat function so I don't have to share the screen again. Just a second for me.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, Candice. I mean, that was very informative and very helpful. So the number there is 08 100. So it's 0800-214-773. So it's in the chat, but I will repeat it again. It's 0800-214-773. Thank you so much, Candice. I am very honored to introduce our next speaker, Marian Sherm. Marian is an award-winning journalist, author, and media consultant. Marian has written extensively about mental health issues over the last 27 years. And after receiving a Rosalynn Carter Mental Health Journalism Fellowship from the Carter Center in Atlanta in 2005, the idea of a meaningful book on the topic formed in her mind, the book being Surfacing. As a media consultant to SADC, she is honored to be part of the movement to reach out through the South African media to enhance Rosalynn Carter's dream of helping to break the stigma of mental health. So she's currently in the process of writing her next book around bullying and teen suicide, which we've seen a huge rise in our community as well. But today, she will be giving us an idea of the stories in the book Surfacing and her personal experience with mental illness. Marian Sherm, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for the introduction. My background is, in a nutshell, I've been a journalist for 33 years, almost 34 years. And before I started, I knew nothing about mental health. I have no personal journey with mental health. But, you know, when you're a journalist, I got to write on all sorts of things. I mean, some really ugly stories. I was working in news in the 1980s and politics. So you can imagine some of the awful stories I had to cover and where our country was then. I've written on the sex slave trade, drugs in primary school. Why I'm telling you this is because when I started writing, I met Zane Wilson, who started SADC. I had a very boring Q&A column for Cosmopolitan. I go along and interview people and like you guys and say, what do you do? What did you study? And, you know, so on. And one day I was sent to interview Zane Wilson. And Zane, who started SADC, South African Depression Anxiety Group, she'd suffered from panic disorder for 10 years before it was diagnosed. Bear in mind, we're talking about now 30 odd years ago. And I went to interview her knowing nothing about mental health. I wrote her story, which I went back to my editor at the time and said, look, this isn't a column. This is, you know, a hell of a story. And Zane, being the very clever marketer that she had been in her previous life, she was very good. And she would send us, when I say us, any journalist she got her hands on, she would send you press releases about bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. And I found that every time I did a story, whether it was in Fair Lady, True Love, whatever I was writing for, Sunday Times, I would get this incredible response from people saying, gee whiz, thank you so much for writing that. I thought it was just me. My family told me to get over myself. And over the years, as Nomfundo said, I was very fortunate to get one of the Carter Fellowships. And I think I thought then that one day I want to do a book, but, you know, I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, and I'm certainly not, I would want to qualify straight away. I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a mental health practitioner in any way, unlike Candice. But, you know, you learn a lot about people when you write about them. And I always thought I wanted to do a book, but it's not my style to write sort of heavy textbook stuff. I wanted to do a meaningful book. I wanted to follow the wonderful, wonderful Rosalynn Carter, her ethos of helping to break the stigma. Because nearly everybody on this talk today, we're all South African. And you know, one of the things is we don't talk easily about our problem. It's not like, you know, when you turn into American talk shows and you see them all talking about their problems. That doesn't happen here. We keep everything to ourselves. I think with COVID, it's really pushed this forward. I mean, SADC from getting 400 calls a day, getting 1,600 calls a day. So yes, we are all, including myself. You can't be normal if you're not stressed at this point in time. And going back to the myth, the book, when I decided to write the book, I wanted to use real people of every color, every culture in the book. Because how else was I going to show that it's your neighbor, it's your friend, it's your cousin, it's your auntie, your uncle, your son, your daughter. And by the way, the youngest suicide that has been reported in the last 2 years through SADC that we know of is 6 years old. So make no mistake, don't look at children playing in a playground and think, oh, isn't it wonderful? They've got no cares. They most certainly do. One of the biggest things that came out in the book is the impact of social media. That is massive, whether you're in the workplace, and it is vile in the workplace, it's vile in the social world, and it's really, but very often adults, we can cope with it. But, you know, children, it's not so easy. In my book, quite a number of the people in the book were bullied at school. One young man, he was bullied because he was obviously gay, and he lived in a small Western Cape. He is an Afrikaans chap, and he lived in a small town in the Western Cape coast, and he was bullied, and he thought, you know what, when I go to high school, I'm going to high school in Cape Town, people won't know me and I'll be fine, I'll start again. And that didn't happen. The bullying continued. And then he thought, well, when I go to university, you know, it's different, we're all adults. And it wasn't different. And then he thought, well, when I go to London, you know, they're much more accepting of gay people. My life will be much better and things will be all right. And it wasn't. And he ended up jumping in front of a tube train. Tube train came along. He lost his legs, but he didn't lose his life. And for the first time, his name is Darryl Brown. He's a wonderful, wonderful young man. And for the first time, he found himself in hospital. And for the first time, he saw a psychiatrist, and he was able to talk, and he saw a therapist, and he was able to talk. And believe it or not, he's back in South Africa. And of course, life isn't that easy because he doesn't have legs, but he's never been happier. And that sounds crazy in itself, but he has never been happier because he's found to talk and share his problems automatically lifted so much off his shoulders. And that was nearly everybody in the book. The book opens with a story, a very tragic story, of a young girl, a 15 years old, and she was the daughter of an Indian lady, Charmaine Naidu, a wonderful woman, who, when she lost her very, very beautiful 15-year-old daughter, who was very popular at school, we don't know that there was any bullying in this young girl's life. I don't think there was. There were signs, which we only realized later, but she has dedicated her life now to educating other young people and other parents and school teachers about how to pick up the signs of suicide. And I think Nomfundo mentioned suicide at the beginning and statistics. And every February, SADC has Prevention of Teen Suicide Week. And we see the numbers just going up in a straight line. And it's tragic. It's really, really hard. What can you do about it? Well, those of you that are parents, I've got one thing to say to you is, watch your children. You know, it's very hard. A friend of mine said to me the other day, a fellow journalist, she said, you know, she'd recently got divorced and life's been tough, and she picked up her kids from school, and she said her oldest son, he's 12, I think, he gets in the back, he's on his phone. He gets home, he goes into his bedroom, he's on his computer. And she's very worried that she doesn't know what's going on in his life. And I think a lot of us can understand that. My children are grown up, and I don't have that now, and they didn't go, there was computers and cell phones, but I didn't go through what parents are going through now. So my message there is, keep your eye on your kids. Really, you know, keep your fingers on what they're doing. In the book also, we had other stories. We had people who are suffering from bipolar disorder. That's a very difficult disorder. And don't think it's all the same. You know, you've got mental health, and which covers a multitude of issues. And you've got depression, which of course is the most common, and then you've got severe depression. The thing is, the good news is that there is an answer. There are pills out there. Now, a lot of people, when you say antidepressants, say, oh, no. Those, I don't want to go on antidepressants, because if I go on them, I'm going to be on them for the rest of my life. That's a myth. It's not true at all. You can go on them for 6 months, a year, longer. However long it gets you to take right. And I've had numerous people, not just in my book, over the years, I've been writing on mental health 27 years, say, antidepressants saved my life. Such and such a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And talking about psychologists, and I think it's absolutely wonderful that you have this service offered to you, that you can pick up a phone and there's someone at the other end to help you, which is also what SADC does. That's so important, just having someone to talk to. That makes the world of difference. I might sound a bit biased there. My daughter's a clinical psychologist, and she's the one that keeps telling me, Mummy, when are you going to go to one? And I said, after COVID. But I mean it. I really am, because I mean, after all these years, I feel a fraud because I've never been to a therapist myself. But it is on my to-do list. Now I'm fully vaccinated. I do want to say one thing. I did love one share of Candice's where you said, Candice, share the labour. Yesterday, I thought, well, it's the only warm day here in Gauteng this week. I'm going to do washing. And I said to my husband, and I was really stressed yesterday, the word stress, I had a lot to do. He said, can I help you? I said, oh, please hang out the washing. What didn't occur to him, that you actually have to put pegs in. And I walked out an hour later to find my washing flown to the wind. He said he didn't know you actually had to put the pegs in because he didn't see the wind. So I don't know about that, Candice, about sharing the labour, I must tell you. But generally, you know, we have a good life on the whole in South Africa, but right now the whole world is suffering from COVID. There's no one in the world that isn't, except perhaps for those thousands and thousands of fans at sporting events that we've seen this last few days. Why did I write the book? I mean, I'm sure that's what I've been asked. Perhaps that's the biggest question. And I wrote the book simply to get people talking. I want you guys to talk to your friends. When you say to someone, which we all do every day, how are you feeling? We just say, how's it in South Africa? How are you? Do we really listen to what they say back? Really listen. And, you know, your workmates, the people you see every day, as I think Nomfundi said at the beginning, we spend most of our time at work. And those people become our friends. They become our family. So when you say to someone, how are you? Listen, watch. And if you think they're not feeling good, you have that service. Give them the phone number if they aren't on this broadcast and say, why don't you take advantage of what's being offered to us? Why don't you phone? Another example from my book was a very special man, Sipho Similani. He was a very successful businessman. And on the outside, if you met him, and he's got the most fantastic personality. I met him for the first time in a restaurant. And as he walked through, everyone knew him. And everyone thought, wow, you could see everyone likes this guy. And then he told me his story. And he'd felt the depression building up over an amount of time, but he didn't go and see anyone. He comes from a traditional Zulu background. Well, in fact, he comes from Swaziland. I know that's not what it's called now. It's Eswatini, sorry. And he did nothing until one night he went to bed and he carefully planned what he was going to do the next day. And the next day, he woke up. He just took with him what he needed. He figured, I'm only going to be around a couple of days. Very carefully. I mean, this story, my book is called Surfacing, and the outside shows a sea purposely with this coming out of this dark, deep mire into the surface. And the book originally was going to be called Stories of Hope. I'll come back to Sipho, why I'm bringing this up now. It is stories of hope. It's not all doom and gloom. And one of the funniest stories in the book is Sipho, who tried to take his own life 3 times in one day. Now that sounds weird. How can that be funny? When he left home, he took his medical aid card, he took all his cards and took his credit card just in case he needed anything on the way. And a bottle store was one of the things he definitely needed. And he got to his aunt in Swaziland, Eswatini, and said, look, you know, I've just come to see you. And nobody sort of thought anything. And the next day off he went and he stopped at a bottle store and bought himself quite a large amount of booze. He thought, why not? And he found himself in a game reserve. Well, he didn't know at first when he wandered in, but of course it doesn't take long to work out you're in a game reserve. And he saw a railway track. Now remember, he'd probably drunk a good deal of this bottle by now. And he thought, you know what? He'd bought himself a rope at the hardware store. He was going to climb a tree and he saw the railway track and he thought, I'll lay down on the railway track and that way it'll be over. Anyway, after lying there for about 2 hours, he suddenly realized that it's Sunday and the trains don't run. So he got himself up and he found a tree and he thought that tree looks okay, climbed up the tree, and he's a very slightly built chap, Sipho. Strung up his rope, climbed into the rope, and the next thing, the rope broke and he found himself on his bum on the ground. Anyway, he picked himself up, walked on a bit further, saw another tree, tried again, same thing happened again. Found himself on the ground. When he was telling me the story, the two of us, you couldn't help it. We just ended up laughing. And I said to him, you know what, Sipho, you could make this into a one-man show because he's got a huge personality. But that one-man show would be your face. It would be you, an ordinary South African, telling your story. Because again, like Daryl, for the first time, because the police eventually found him, they'd found all his cards cut up because he tried to talk his way out of it, which is very Sipho, but they realized what had happened. And they got him off to a hospital where, for the first time, he met a psychiatrist and a psychologist. He was put on medication, he had therapy, And now he is absolutely fine. He's father to two great young men, and his family were fine about it. And he's a great guy. And again, he speaks up for mental health. Some of you might have heard him. So the book is made up of all different stories. Somebody with schizophrenia who's doing an amazing job in the world of schizophrenia today. That's a very serious illness. A woman with bipolar who is still suffering, but how she copes with it. And, I think that really gives you a summation of the book. I think what Sadak and what my daughter always says is, it's okay not to be okay. And, I think you've got to work out, we all feel stressed. We all have days of stress. Of course we do. But when is it more than just a bad day? When is it more than just a blue day? And if these days come more than you think, it's very easy. You can go onto Sadak's website and very, very easily you will see the signs of clinical depression. Now, if you have clinical depression, that means that the serotonin that flows to your brain, something is blocking it. And it's just like if you have diabetes or heart disease, except when you have diabetes and heart disease and you tell people you have that, they say, oh, shame. You don't tell people you have depression. You don't tell people you have bipolar disorder because you are worried about the stigma. And in the workplace, you're worried about your bosses thinking maybe they're not up to the job. So I'm so happy to speak to you all. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, because please talk about it. Talk to your friends. And of course, read the book. If you order it from Sadak, they're getting all the profits. I didn't write this book to make money. I wrote this book, honestly, to get people talking. So thank you for listening, and please talk about it.
Thank you so much, Candice. I mean, it's an honor to have you as part of our panel today, and have you joining us and gracing us with your presence, obviously, and so that we can also just pick your brain a little bit more, and try and pass the baton over to everyone that is here. We trying to take it over from SADC, from ICAST, from you. I mean, we're getting a lot of comments. Candice, Gwena, Audrey, they're all saying thank you. And Audrey, to answer your question again, the name of the book is called Surfacing, which is available on order from SADC. Can you give us those details?
Yes, look, you can get it at Exclusive Books, and good job my publisher's not on this talk, because they make more money if you buy it online. Of course, it's through Amazon and other sites, and it's at Exclusive Books, and as they say, all good bookstores. But the reason I want you to buy it from Sadak is because they get the profits. And also with Sadak, it's fantastic. If you go onto their website and you scroll down, you'll see it. You press a button and you just give a few details, and it will be delivered to your home, which in this day and age is something you want. You don't want to be going to shopping centres.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if you have any problems getting the book, you can get hold of me. But as I say, Cassie Chambers at Sadak, some of you may know her, or Nomfundo can connect you. And the book is very readily available, yes. And it honestly isn't a heavy read. I promise. People were surprised by that. And a lot of people said to me, what was great was that they were able to give it to family members who have been saying to them, I'll get over yourself. And my best friend said to me, Marion, I thought I understood mental health, but I didn't until I read your book.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch more on the book because we actually have a little bit of a surprise up our sleeves for everyone. But just a few questions, Marion, while we still have you here. I want to just start from your earlier commentary and statements. So how can we help each other better? I think that's the most important thing, because like you also mentioned, that I did mention that we spend most of our times at work with the people that we have, and how can we help each other? Because as I'm passing, it's hi, how's it? And you're actually not even listening to what the answer is. How can I be of help to the next person, and how do I identify maybe the help that person might need in that person?
That's so important, Nomfundo. It's what I said. When you say to somebody, how are you? Look at them. You know them. I think all of us, I remember when I used to pick up my son from school, I could drive into the school and see him waiting, and I knew immediately if there's anything wrong. You work with these people every day. And if you think, don't be thinking, oh, well, it's none of my business, I must keep it to myself. Wait to a tea break, lunch break, and say to them, do you need help? Can I help you? You know, I know people. Is there something wrong? Please tell me, please help me. Or go to someone you think can help them. But don't ignore it. Really don't ignore it.
I think that's very important that we shouldn't ignore it, and we should just be more present. And when you ask that question, as you say, just can I actually look at your facial expression as you're answering and telling me how you are, and not just say, oh, I'm good, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just those small things that we can pick up. So
I mean, you'll
mentioned,
go home and you'll mention it to someone else. I was just thinking, Nonfundu, as you were talking, I was working at a I do corporate work, and I was working at a big organization in their comms department. And I came home and said to my husband, you know, these girls are overworked, they're overstressed. And all three of them, within 6 months, had breakdowns.
No.
Yep. And this is a very big company. It wasn't the company's fault. It was their fault in a way because, well, maybe their colleagues, but nobody picked it up. Have we frozen?
Yeah, I think, but I can still hear you. And I think we still online there.
Yes, I was just checking my mic.
So we are seeing a lot of comments, people saying that I should definitely get that book, and you definitely should. So just a few more questions before we close. I mean, you spoke about, and which is a big play when you cultural backgrounds play a huge role in probably strengthening the whole stigma of mental illness. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, where do I ask for the help? I mean, I'm being called crazy. I need to go maybe and slaughter a cow because I'm hearing things and all of that, which could also just be, and I'm not discounting that at all without any disrespect to anyone, but it could be mental illness. But where do I get that lifeline, that help, that support that I need?
Again, a brilliant question. I've done a lot of work, and part of my work during my fellowship was tradition, culture, and mental health. You know, it's interesting because if you go to a GP, you get 15 minutes, you know, they're watching their watch and you're out. But if you go to a traditional healer, the one good thing is they will sit and they will listen for as long as it takes.
Yes.
So I never say to people, don't do that. But, you know, if you're genuinely hearing voices in your head, a traditional healer quite likely will tell you it's your ancestors speaking to you, and it may well be. But it may also be bipolar. So what SADAG and I've been involved with is educating traditional healers on mental health. So at least they understand. And if they think, wow, okay, this person needs professional mental help, that they recommend that you get it. And that's a big one. And it's a work in progress. You can't strip somebody of their cultural beliefs. And if slaughtering a cow genuinely makes you feel better, lifts a burden off you, then go do it. Every culture has their beliefs, their superstitions, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying for 1 minute, don't do that. But educate yourself about mental health. If you have just depression, it can just be for 6 months. Don't think you've got depression for life. But yes, you can have a mental illness like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. You can have that for life. I mean, but even if you have it for life, you can learn to live with it. And there's a lot of people out there living with it and leading very full lives. But nobody has to be depressed.
Yeah, that is very true, and thank you for that. I've seen a question coming through here for you, Marion, and in your opinion, can social media like Instagram be the cause that we end up committing suicide because we feel like we don't meet the standards that are placed there?
Yes, that's going to be a massive focus of my next book. Absolutely. I heard a young woman the other day saying she gets upset because she sees her friends having something and she's not invited. So immediately she goes into decline. That's just one instance. Or you haven't got the latest, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I think Instagram, I think social media, and right now social media, I posted, and I don't post very often. I posted on Facebook this morning, please people, be careful what you repost, because people are actually posting photos that are from South America taken 4 years ago of riots. I mean, and inciting. Social media is incredibly dangerous. And you see these people all having a wonderful time. Their lives are perfect and yours maybe isn't. You know, their photos with their beautifully clean children and their beautifully clean homes. And we all know, come on, guys, that's really not the reality.
Yeah, I mean, everything is perfect on social media, and that's a reality that we live in. But I think last question from me before we get the information, contact details, and just re-information about where we can get the book. What can I do to play my part in breaking the stigma, just raising the baton and making Rosalynn Carter proud as well that we're continuing with this?
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, dear Rosalynn Carter, she really is. The Carters are not like any other American ex-president and their wife, especially in the recent years. They celebrated 75 years of marriage, in fact, last week. I think how can you help break the myth, the stigma around mental health? Is just talk about it. And if you are on an antidepressant, don't be frightened to say you're an antidepressant, or you went to a therapist and this therapist changed your life. That I'm getting all the time. But you know, there's therapists and there's therapists. So you've also got to find the therapist that works for you. I've been told you might have to go to 2 or 3 or 4 before you find the right one. Because I said to my daughter-in-law, in fact, who's also a clinical psychologist, I said to her, she was looking for one for me. And I said, but you've got to find me somebody near me. I haven't got time to go far. And she laughed. She said, Marion, it's really not about who's near you. It's who you know, I think you're going to click with. So understand it may not be the first session you have, but I've heard so much about how much good it does for you that I definitely need to try it. I don't see myself as a particularly stressed person, but COVID definitely has changed me as a person.
Yeah, COVID, we can have a whole session on it. But just again, Marion, can you please just help us with details on where to get the book and contact details for anyone else that might not be on ICAST. So we know that AFHCO employees and SA corporate employees have access to ICAST, joining us within our session today. But anyone else that does not have access to ICAST, we do have SADC, South African Anxiety and Depression. Okay, I said it the other way around. South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Contact details for that, and so that we can get the help that we need at the time that we need it.
In fact, SADC is really quite an exceptional organisation. It really is, run on a shoestring. Very often, each year we nearly close down every year. The website is www.sadag, which is probably an unfortunate name, sadag.org.za. I think it's .za. .org, yes, .org.za. And as I say, there is so much information on that website that is so useful. And I think just reading other people's stories and you think, oh, that's me. That's another thing that came out in my book. People that read my book, one woman said to me, she saw herself in every chapter. Yeah, I think that was important too. That, you know, I think it's like you can be in a supermarket and look around you. And if you think 1 in 3 people will suffer from a mental illness issue in their lives, and you look around anywhere where there's lots of people, 1 in 3, that's a lot of people.
That is definitely a lot of people. So just to repeat the details again, you can order the book from the website of SADC. It's www.sadag.org. I'm actually just online now, so I've just confirmed that it is .org. And the contact number is 0800 567 567. And thank you, Stuart, for sharing the link with us on the chat there. And I mean, round of applause to you, Marion, for the wonderful work that you're doing. We are very, very appreciative of taking on the baton and continuing as a media consultant, more especially to be helping us to break the stigma of mental health, so that we are also able to talk about such topics in normal conversations with our friends, with our families, and we won't feel like we are going to be called crazy or anything like that. So thank you so much. Just as a vote of thanks, a special thank you to everyone who has joined into this virtual info session. We hope your time with us has been very fruitful and that you learned something today, even if it was just one thing, but that you learned something today that you can use in your life to better it and to better your mental health. So I did say that we've got a little bit of a surprise from AFHCO. So we are giving away 15 signed copies of the book Surfacing, and thank you for personally signing them, Marion. I did receive them personally, so I do have the books with me. I mean, immediately when I heard of the book Surfacing last year, I gifted myself a copy for Christmas, and it has been quite an eye-opener, so much so that I had to re-gift it and hope that the baton will be passed on. And as an avid reader myself, this is an easy read, as you've mentioned, but very meaningful. It's a very meaningful book for everyone, no matter your age, your gender, your cultural background, or anything. This is definitely a meaningful book. So for the AFHCO employees, look out for a quiz on the discussions covered today. And for all our guests outside of our organization, like and follow us on our socials to win one of these signed copies. Guys, I must add that they are signed copies, physically signed by Marion herself. Thank you for that. On Facebook, we are AFHCO, AFHCO, Africa Housing Company. On Twitter, it's My Inner City Home. On Instagram, it's My Inner City in Pictures. And this session was currently live on our socials, but it will also be available on our YouTube page if you want to go back to it, if you want to share it with your family and friends that couldn't make it today. On our YouTube page, it's AFHCO, AFHCO, Africa Housing Company. And on our website as well, it will be available, afhco.co.za. It's afhco.co.za. So thank you once again to our speakers, Candice and Marion. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the knowledge that you have parted with us today and that we have gained and made us better people. So from the team at AFHCO, Africa Housing Company, may you all have a blessed and productive day further. Stay safe, wear your masks, wash your hands, and maintain social distance. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day further. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.